then on getting Afghan interpreters and other U.S. allies out of there. Of what you can tell me and what you know of the plan, is this pretty much what you wanted to happen, even though it might be a little bit late in the game? And we don't know a lot of the details, or they're not public yet, like where they're going to go, how we're going to keep them safe until we get them out of there. Is this kind of what you wanted? And if not, what else would you have wanted?
Well, Nick, it's certainly delayed, and we are seeing intense fighting in and around many provincial capitals, which is making it harder for anyone to leave. Essentially, if you're not near Kabul, you're not going to be able to get to the Kabul International Airport where these flights are going to be departing from. If you're down in Kandahar city, there's already fighting with pretty close to downtown. And I lived in downtown Kandahar city. I'm seeing some photos of these skirmishes, and I know these corners. I mean, these are this is not on the outskirts. This is within the city itself. I'm disappointed, of course, that it's taken this long. This should have been a plan that was developed and ready to implement as soon as the Biden administration made the announcement that they were continuing to plan, or they were continuing to hold to that withdrawal short time frame. So we should have been doing this long ago. These flights should have already started to leave. And I'm also very worried that besides being too late or later than it should have been, it also might be too little. And we're talking about 18,000 interpreters who are in this queue. And again, these are not just random Afghan civilians. These are people who signed up to fight alongside American soldiers, who were helping us conduct interrogations, who were leading American soldiers in Afghan villages and pointing out who was Taliban. I mean, these are folks who have proven their loyalty and who have a target on their backs because of it. So right now, I'm deeply concerned that they won't approve the number that they need to, that they'll go too slow in trying to do this, and that more and more of these interpreters who are waiting will continue to get killed.
Is this a situation where the Taliban knows who these people are? Like, this isn't a secret. They know who these people are, and as they continue to consolidate power, they're going to come for them?
They absolutely know who they are. Now, the Taliban spokesperson has said that they won't target, those who kind of renounce the work that they did. I don't think you can take them at their word there. So a lot of these individuals, I mean, they were not wearing a mask. I mean, they were operating within their village or within their town, but they felt a sense of safety, not only because the American government made the assurance that if we left or if they worked honorably for us, they would get a pathway towards getting a green card. I mean, that was part of this contract. That was part of this promise that was made. And one of the reasons why many of these individuals felt comfortable putting their trust in the American government and working alongside us, because we told them that we would look out for them. So they were not operating with necessarily the sense of concern that now is clear they should have been. And they weren't operating with the sense of doubt and mistrust of the American government that we're quickly showing they should have been if we don't do what's right here.
One other question on this, and then I'll move on to the Canadian border. I'm sure you saw the comments by former President Bush. He thinks this is a mistake. He thinks it is just going to lead to more problems.
The mistake in Afghanistan withdrawal.
Yes.
Yeah.
You and your predecessor, former Congressman Amash, were people who've been pushing for this for a long time. I suppose just a general question, what do you think of the former president's comments? Do you think is there any validity to them, even though you still think the pullout is the right move?
No, I mean, I disagree with his comments. And I do think the pullout's the right move. We could stay there another 20 years. We could have more American soldiers die. We could have more Afghan civilians caught in the crossfire and continue to die as well. And we'd be in the same place that we are, right? This is not a military conflict. It is a political conflict that's being fought with military means. But one quick thing on the Biden administration, when Joe Biden was elected senator, he opposed vigorously Operation New Life to help evacuate South Vietnamese who had served alongside the U.S. That was back in 1975. It was over 120,000 folks who went to Guam and then came to the U.S. and are now a strong part of this country. Joe Biden opposed it back then. I really hope he doesn't make the same mistake in judgment now. And we need him to get this going and not to delay, because here delay is deadly.
Yeah, and I think I talked about this with Vietnam. It reminds me of the Hmong soldiers as well that were in many cases left behind. Canadian border now. I've read the statements by both yourself and Representative Huizenga. This isn't all And you can look at the vaccination rates. They're much better in the United States right now than they are in Canada. And in order to get this fully open, we need to convince not only the Biden administration, but also the Trudeau administration, I would imagine, because this is a two-way street. Is there any outreach or pressure being put on the Canadian government, or is that what you're hoping the Biden administration will do?
I think the Biden administration needs to not just sit back, but to, again, it's going to be a Canadian decision to reopen that border, but strongly encouraging that, having that conversation, not sitting back and just sitting on our hands. It's something that I've raised with Canadian government officials, because there's a lot of Americans who have loved ones that they aren't able to see. It can be very challenging. I mean, Canada and Michigan, I mean, this is not some insurmountable border. I mean, it's something that a lot of Michiganders spent significant time in Canada and vice versa. I'm really worried about what it means, not just on the impact on families. That's where we've seen a lot of the emotional challenges, but also what this means for getting our economy back up and running. Now, we already have semi trucks going back and forth, so that trade component is there. But a lot of the other components, some of the cross-border investment, some of the business meetings and the things that are required to really make sure that we retain our strong economic ties and relationships, that's atrophying, and that's really worrying. The broader argument, though, too, and where the Biden administration can take some action is when it comes to additional foreign travel for those coming from overseas. Now, even in places with high vaccination rates, even in places where a traveler has a vaccine, has been vaccinated, there are still bans from abroad, from some EU countries. There are some bans from some countries outside the EU. And there are plenty of other countries with lower vaccination rates and higher COVID rates that are allowed in. It's an incredibly random system that just has not been reevaluated since the very early days in the pandemic. I guarantee you, if this was under President Trump, the media would be crying foul at every turn. And instead, we just normally accept this when, again, it's separating Americans from loved ones. It's separating Americans from their family members who might be abroad. We have the vaccines here domestically to reevaluate those positions, and it should be strongly evidence-based rather than just this ad hoc system that went in place over a year ago and has not been evaluated with any sense of rigor since.